Hello, my online learners. So here we go. Excretion and waste. That is the topic for today's discussion. So what we're going to do is I am working through the textbook and with the worksheet. So to start with, where do we go here? Here we go. To start with, when we look at excretion, the process of excretion, or the definition of excretion, is the process of removing waste and excess water from the body. Now, wastes are things that aren't good for the body. So when we look at the different organs, let's also consider the waste of the body. So we have the skin, liver, large intestine, lungs, and kidneys, and all together these make up the excretory system. So when we're talking about skin is part of the integumentary system, but it also has a very important part in excretion, and that is through sweat. So sweat is a way for the body to maintain a homeostasis in terms of temperature, and in the process of that it will eliminate water and salt and a small amount of urea. So urea is one of these nitrogenous wastes that is bad when it builds up in the body, so we need to get rid of it. Also too, you may notice if you've even eaten a lot of spicy food, you can sweat it out. And you can smell it in your sweat. Another thing too is the liver. The liver has over 200 functions, but when it comes to the excretion function, here it is here. The liver breaks down many substances in the blood, including toxins. The liver transforms ammonia, which is a poisonous byproduct from protein catabolism, which means the breaking down of proteins. If you remember that there's that amino group, that nitrogen group on the proteins, and it turns it into urea. Ammonia is toxic. Urea is only slightly toxic. And then the urea can then be filtered out in the kidneys. The liver also excretes bile in a in a protein called bilirubin. And that bilirubin will then go into the small intestine and be part of the feces when it comes out the large intestine. Now remember, when we're talking about the large intestine, the stuff in your large intestine was never part of your body unless it's been dumped into it. And an example of that is when bile is secreted from the liver, it will go into the intestinal tract, and then some of it gets reabsorbed and some of it becomes the brown in your poop. Now, the lungs, we probably never really think of them as excreting a waste product, but carbon dioxide. So if you remember cellular respiration, you've got glucose plus oxygen produces carbon dioxide in water. That carbon dioxide is toxic, and if you're not breathing it out, it will actually change the pH of your blood. So in order to keep the blood at a homeostasis, you need to breathe out carbon dioxide. So those are the organs we don't really think about in terms of excretion, but the next one, or the main one we're going to look at and focus on this unit, is the kidneys. So when we look at kidneys, they are paired organs in the sort of near the back, and your ribs come halfway through them. Now, the kidneys are pretty simple from the outside. They're kidney shaped. There is a tube called a ureter that comes from it. The urine is stored in the bladder until you're ready to pee it out, and then the urethra lets it out to the outside. So this is the way that the body can filter the waste out of out of the blood, creating urine, and then put it to the outside of the body. Please remember, the job of the kidney is not so much to create urine, but to balance the blood and put the extra stuff into the urine. So when we look at the organs of the urinary system, they're pretty simple. You've got the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. Now, quite often people mix up the ureters and the urethra, but ureters is alphabetically before urethra, and you have two of them. So the ureter comes before the urethra. Now, in the female, the urethra has its own opening to the outside. In the male, the urethra will go through the penis, which is the same tube as the reproductive ejaculatory fluid, but not at the same time. At the end of the urethra, there are two sphincters or circular muscles to close it off. Actually, one's at the bottom of the bladder. There is the internal one, which is involuntary. So it is a smooth muscle. And there's an external one, which is voluntary. And quite often when females are talking about a healthy pelvic floor, that's so that you could control off your urine. Probably not something that high school kids have to worry about. Okay, so that is the functions of those. When we look at controlling the urinary system, there are three main hormones that work through the urinary system. The antidiuretic hormone. The antidiuretic hormone reabsorbs water using water channels called aquaporins. Then the parathyroid hormone will absorb calcium through your calcium ions through the kidney. And then there's something called aldosterone. And aldosterone will pump sodium. Then water follows. Okay. And that's just briefly to look at it. We'll go into more detail in that in a higher course. Good. Now, when you look at the cross section of the kidney, you will see that there are sort of two definite layers. There's an outside layer called the renal cortex, and then there's the inside layer called the renal medulla. Inside the medulla, there are these triangular parts called renal pyramids. It's in these parts that the urine is created, and then it's collected in the major and minor calyx, and then it goes to the ureter. And those are the main part. Make sure you know the main parts there. I'm going to stop video 1 now here at 7 minutes, and then I'll start a completely new video for the nephron. So make sure you go through and have all the terms filled out for the external organs of the bladder. Sorry, of the excretory system. See you later.